Welcome to the Illini Radio Network. I'm your host, Jay Shoob, and folks, we got a good episode here for you today as we're going to talk some Illini football. The season is almost upon us. The first season of the David Deal era is near underway, and we have some rosters, some scheduling, some other things to talk about today, and we got some good quotes here from your head coach, David Deal. As some of you may know, Illinois football hasn't been that great recently. In fact, it hasn't been great in a decade, really. Last year, Illinois came off a 2-6 record in the COVID season, fired Lovie Smith, and that's where we've been left off today with David Deal. There seems to be a new page turned in the history of Illini football, and we get to turn that page this Saturday against UTSA. All that being said, it's not just smoke, there's some fire. There seems to be a new sense of energy and culture change around the program from people that I've talked to that are close with Illini football, have been around the program. I've seen some of it myself. There definitely is a heightened sense of energy, stuff we haven't seen here for years. And I think a lot of this is the credit to Coach Deal as he's come in here and he's really connected with the players and he's really gotten their respect and their attention. And he's instilled a mindset that you can kind of just see radiating off of everybody. Let's take a look here and get inside the mindset of head coach Deal at his latest press conference, where I asked him a few questions about this upcoming season. First question is I asked Deal about what it takes to build a program, and especially a program like here at Illinois. Deal said, quote, "It's not rocket science really. You build a culture where players show up to our facility every day knowing that as long as they work with a positive attitude and trust the process that we as a coaching staff have established here, then winning will follow. People often say you need to establish a winning culture. Well, I don't believe winning is a culture. Winning is a product of the culture and the process. Once you have those two things established, you have a well-oiled machine that pumps out a product, and that product will be winning. Our players know this, and I've been grilling it in their head since I've gotten here in early spring." End quote. And I'll tell you what, Deal was regarded by some as sort of an unorthodox hire because he didn't have much coaching experience prior to his job here at Illinois. But that quote right there, that sounds like words coming out of a veteran coach's mouth if you ask me. I think that answer speaks a lot and has been showing in these players, as I mentioned earlier. I also asked Deal about his expectations for this season specifically. Now, Deal didn't really answer the question directly, but I'll say what Coach Deal won't. This roster that he has just isn't that good. It's just not that good, folks. Many have projected this team to be a 3 to 4 win team this season by most. And that's not 3 to 4 wins in last year's COVID season. That's 3 to 4 wins this year in a normal 12-game regular season. Not to mention the latest recruiting classes that Lovie Smith's team pulled in. They've been near the bottom of the Big Ten, and it's just not a good roster. I will say this, making a bowl game with this roster would be quite an achievement in my opinion. Quite an achievement. You know, you hate to have expectations pegged so low, but that's just the reality of the situation we're in. And even though David Deal won't say it, he definitely knows this. And you can see why he's saying what he's saying. He's trying to instill a culture and trying to build that foundation. That foundation is not necessarily going to pump out results this year, but it will hopefully in the near future. Now let's transition over to this roster. The offense is going to be play called primarily by offense coordinator Tony Peterson, but Coach Deal is going to have a say in the offense as well. He's going to have a bit to do with the process and the play calling for the offense as well. At the quarterback position, the most important position on the field in this sport, it looks like we got ourselves a battle between Matt Robinson and Isaiah Williams. Robinson is the more traditional pocket passing quarterback. He sat behind Brandon Peters last season, and he's been waiting his turn. He's a guy that right off the bat you'd probably say he would be the starter. However, there's been a little bit of noise made by Isaiah Williams out of camp these past month. And a lot of the reports and the noise that I've heard is that he's improved a lot and that some people think he could take the job. People have been saying he's about as good of a pure passer as Robinson, but he's also a dual threat, and that dual threat capability will be very important, especially with the way that this offensive line is assembled. Speaking of whether he was going to pick one or the other, Coach Deal said the starter hasn't been named yet. So, you know what that means? We're probably not going to know who the starter is until Saturday at game time. So there you go, already some drama going in at the quarterback position for the first game of the first season here under Coach Deal. Next at the running back position, we have Mike Epstein, and he's going to be the clear-cut starter at running back. He's going to be a workhorse, and I think that he's going to be a guy that maybe could even take some pressure off of Robinson or Williams as they develop into their time as being a first-year starter this season. And behind Epstein, you have Chase Brown and Chase Hayden, transfer from Arkansas, who are going to battle between that second spot on the running back depth chart. Now moving over to receiver, this position's got a lot of players. It's headlined by Donnie Navarro III, the fifth-year senior. This guy has been waiting his chance to finally be wide receiver 1 on this team. He finally gets it after Illinois lost a couple of very solid receivers last year. So Navarro will headline this wide receiving core, followed by Jafar Armstrong, who transferred over to Illinois from Notre Dame. Now Armstrong saw the field a little bit at Notre Dame, but he didn't quite really feel comfortable with that whole situation. He never got his chance to shine on one of the biggest stages over there in South Bend. But he gets to come here, and he's already the second wide receiver. He's going to be starting, and we'll see what we get from him. He's a very solid receiver. I think Navarro and Armstrong, they're not really flashy guys up at the top of this receiving core, but they seem like they're solid and they'll get the job done. At tight end, Luke Ford is a solid rock. He should be a great receiving option at tight end. That is his strength. He's not Rob Gronkowski, but he's Luke Ford, and he should be a very solid option for either Robinson or Williams this season. And behind him, Daniel Barker, unfortunately, probably won't get much playing time as he's a senior. But Luke Ford has just been that good, and Barker is definitely a solid option behind Ford. Don't get me wrong. I would love to see Illinois utilize both of these tight ends a lot. And we move over to tackle now, offensive line. This is definitely one of the weaker position groups on this team, and there's some young starters here. Brevin Jones is only a third-year sophomore, and he's going to start at left tackle, while Julian Pearl, the fourth-year junior, is going to start at right tackle. Illinois just, quite frankly, isn't that deep at this position. They're thin and they're very young. This is definitely a position group that you would hope that this coaching staff addresses in recruiting. At guard, we've got a lot of players here on this roster that can play guard. Kendrick Green is arguably, well, I'm not even going to say that. He is the best player on this team. In fact, he's an NFL draft prospect. He's the only guy on this team that's projected right now to be drafted. He also is preseason second team All Big Ten. So I think the accolades speak for himself. Kendrick Green, best player on the team. And it's also not to mention that left guard was head coach David Deal's position. So this should be a great opportunity for these players to really get to pick Deal's brain. I mean, what else can you hope for? The head coach literally played your position, was an All-Pro in the NFL, and won 2 Super Bowls as a starter playing that position. These guys definitely are in a great spot here, and this looks like a position where maybe Illinois can win some recruiting battles and bring in some talent. At center, we have Preston Angle, who will man it, who will handle the snaps, and Josh Kreutz behind him. And moving over to the defensive side of the ball, play called by Ryan Walters, also in his first year at coordinator. We'll start off by looking at the left end, and this position group is very young and inexperienced. Keith Randolph will be the starting left end. He's a redshirt sophomore. Bryce Barnes, Cooper Davis, and Cedarius McConnell, who's redshirted, follow behind him. And then at right end, you have Seth Coleman, who's also just a third-year sophomore, with Ezekiel Holmes. This is a position that hopefully Illinois can also target in recruiting, as they're very young and inexperienced, and will be interesting to see this development out of this position. But we move over to defensive tackle, where it's quite a different story. This is definitely the best and deepest position group on this roster. It's headlined by Jamal Woods, who's second team All Big Ten. Jamal Woods should be very good. And also behind Woods, you have Calvin Avery and Dion Pate. All three of these guys are seniors, and that is such a very good combo right there of Woods, Avery, and Pate. Defensive tackle should not be a problem this year, and it should be expected to be one of the strengths of this team. Even behind these guys, you have guys like Anthony Shipton, Newton, Okpala, and Riggins, who are also very young and very talented. This is a group that can carry this defense and help Ryan Walters scheme around this position group for how good we expect them to be. Over to linebackers. At outside linebacker, we have Ware, Tolson, and Cooper starting on the right side, who are a very solid group. And we would also look to see this coaching staff build depth in recruiting. At middle linebacker, same story, headlined by Tariq Barnes, and very young behind him with three freshmen, Dylan Rosaic, Dwayne Johnson, and Kalen Villanueva following. Moving over to the secondary, this cornerback group is going to be very inexperienced and very young, but they are highlined by Marquez Beeson and Devon Witherspoon. Beeson is only a sophomore, and he has some potential to maybe one day be an NFL draft prospect. This coaching staff really likes him. Witherspoon was named team captain of this defense. He's a very good leader. He's just a junior, but this guy has the mindset of a veteran, and he's going to have a challenge on his hands coaching up and teaching this group of young corners. Behind them, Daniel Everts, Prince Green, Tavon Nicholson, and Tyler Strain are all freshmen. Don't be surprised if you see one of these guys playing some snaps on the defense this year. You want to talk about being thrown into the fire? This is where it's happening. And at free safety, we have Jartavius Martin. He's one of the best overall players on this team. Great coverage safety, and he also might get some NFL looks as he's a senior. D.D. Snyder, the true freshman, will follow in his footsteps and probably see the field next year. And at strong safety, we have a little battle between Derek Smith and Eddie Smith. Apparently Derek Smith, the fifth-year senior, he's going to maintain his job. He was very solid last year, and that tandem with Derek Smith and Jartavius Martin at safeties, they're going to be very solid, and that shouldn't be a group to worry about, at least not at the top. Eddie Smith, on the other hand, he transferred over from Alabama. He's very solid too. The coaching staff likes him. He shockingly did not see much playing time over at Alabama, so that's why he came here to Champaign, because he wants to see the field. And lastly, for special teams unit, we have kicker Caleb Griffin in his fourth year, who was very solid last year for Illinois, and punter Hugh Robertson, who will be a first-year starter as a freshman. Will be interesting to see. Hugh Robertson will probably be the punter here for a few years to come. That's a look at this roster. Overall, if you want to compare it to other rosters in the Big Ten, it's obviously not up there. It's at the bottom, but don't count out David Deal and this coaching staff. We'll see how much they can get out of this offense, out of this team, and out of this defense. Now let's take a look here at the schedule for the 2021 season. After UTSA, they go on the road to Virginia, very solid non-conference matchup, Charlotte, Michigan State to open Big Ten play. Then they go to the Big House following a bye week at Wisconsin, at Purdue, Nebraska, Iowa as we deep dive into Big Ten play, at Rutgers, their cross-divisional rival, a bye week at Minnesota, and they end the season, as always, against Northwestern a great rivalry game in the state of here in Illinois. The Illini get to be home in Champaign at War Memorial for that one, so we're excited to see how the season plays out. Now the good stuff. First team All Big Ten here in the preseason. We have Tanner Morgan from Minnesota, who will be the first team All Big Ten quarterback. That's kind of a surprise. Zach Charbonnet from Michigan, Nakia Watson from Wisconsin, Rashad Bateman and Chris Olave are the running backs and receivers respectively. And we have some other guys like here, Tyler Linderbaum from Iowa, Wade Davis from Ohio State, and some guys on some of these teams that are going to be NFL prospects. No first team players for the Illini, but on second team all preseason Big Ten, we have Justin Fields, who also, like Lawrence, surprisingly came back. He'll be second team All Big Ten at quarterback. Master Teague, Isaiah Bowser, highlighting the running backs there. Wan'Dale Robinson at wide receiver from Nebraska. And we have Kendrick Green at left guard, second team preseason All Big Ten. That's stuff you love to see. He could arguably have been first team, and also good for Jamal Woods getting in at defensive tackle. He is second team, and those are the two Illini that make all preseason Big Ten. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the show. We're looking forward to this game this weekend against UTSA as the Roadrunners come to town. UTSA out of Conference USA, a G5 team that's only a few point underdog against Illinois this weekend. It should be an interesting game. It should be interesting for us Illini fans to see how David Deal and Tony Peterson's offense looks, and Ryan Walters making his debut at coordinator for the defensive side of the ball. We're really looking forward to see who comes out at quarterback for Illinois. Will it be Matt Robinson or will it be Isaiah Williams? War Memorial should be packed. We're excited for football. It's the 2021 season opener. We'll see you this Saturday.